All right, how are we going to get rid of the drop shadow, and how are we going to get rid of that extra little piece of background that we have in there? Well, you know, we already know that holding down Shift will add to a selection, and we also know that holding down Option here on the Mac, or of course Alt on the Windows side, will subtract from a selection. You've seen that a couple of times already with the elliptical marquee tool, as I recall, and also the magic wand tool and so on. So here's what I'm going to do with you. I'm going to switch over to the freehand lasso tool. So go ahead and grab that guy out of the toolbox. And I think what I'll do here is I'll just kind of quickly move my eye along the edge of my selection. There's another little goof up there if I zoom in a little bit closer, where my selection isn't quite perfect. So what I want to do in this situation is that little piece of background in there. I don't know if you can see that or not. Maybe I should zoom in even closer. There we go. There's just a little bit of it in there. What I want to do is I want to cut that away. So I want my marching ants to come down and then across. And once again, this is one of these things that may take a little bit of practice, but I'm sure you'll get the hang of it. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure my cursor is on the outside of my selection. So this is the inside, this is the outside. How do I know? When my cursor's on the outside, I see the lasso tool. When my cursor's on the inside, it changes to the white arrow, right? So make sure you're on the outside. Hold down Option or hold down Alt. You'll see the minus sign appear beside your cursor. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on the outside of the selection, and I'm going to click and drag into the selection, across that selection border, if you will, and cut in, and then come all the way back out the other side. Something like that. So I'm just kind of scalloping in on my selection, if you will. I let go of my cursor, and that's what I get. I just kind of carved away that little piece of selection there. Did you see that there? Let me do that a few more times here for you. I'm just going to pan down a little bit here. Here's the piece of background that we had beside that bolt head. I'll zoom out here so you know where I am. Right in here, that little piece right in there. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to essentially do the same thing, just sort of on a slightly larger scale. So again, this is the technique that I use and that I've used for years and years, and it seems to work great. So what I'm going to do, once again, my cursor's on the outside of the selection. It's not a white arrow, it's the lasso tool. I'm going to hold down Option or Alt on the Mac side here, and then I'll click and cut in on the selection. Cut in around the edge of the object, something like this, and then back out. So I'm in and then I'm out. Let go of my mouse, let go of my keyboard, and that's the result that I get. How's that working out for you? So really now all I'm going to do is I'm going to essentially do the same thing for the shadow that I see sort of behind the object. I'll start off with this big guy here. There's a big shadow below that bolt head. And this is going to be a big one. So here's what I'm going to do. It doesn't really matter which side you start on, the right side or over on the left side. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to hold down Alt or Option, and I'll cut in on my selection. And then what I'm doing here is I'm trying to carefully trace along the top of this object. Now, I'm not doing the greatest job, but hopefully you get the idea here. All the way along and all the way out the other side. Okay, now, once you're at the other side, here's what I want you to do. Come down and loop back all the way back over to where you started, something like that. And that should do the job. That should cut away that hunk of selection, if you will. And essentially what I could do here is if I'm not really happy with, my rough edge here, I could continue along here, holding down Option or holding down Alt, carving in and kind of cleaning up this selection just a little bit. Now, let me show you a cool trick here. If I wind up carving in too much and I take too much selection away, maybe something like that, oops, I didn't mean to do that. How can I fix that? Well, essentially you and I are going to do the exact same thing, just in reverse. So this time what I'll do is I'll make sure my cursor's on the inside of the selection. I'm going to hold down Shift now, and of course Shift adds to the selection as indicated by the plus beside my cursor. And now what I'm going to do is I'm starting on the inside. I'm going to click and drag out of the selection, across the top of that bolt, and then back in. Something like this, let go of my keyboard and mouse, and that's the result that I get. So using Option, you can cut in. Using Shift, you can cut out on your selections. And these are great tricks to know to help you get better and better selections here inside Photoshop. I said a while ago that one of the big things in Photoshop is, the ability to create really, really good selections. So this is all part of the learning process here. Here I'm just doing the exact same thing that we had done earlier. I started on the outside, held down Alt or Option, cut in, and now I'm just looping around back over to the starting point. Something like that. Perfect. All right, so I hope you got the hang of it. I hope you spend a little bit of time practicing that. What I'm going to do myself, though, is I'm going to go and move this guy over onto our face. So I've zoomed out, I hit the V key on my keyboard, and I'll grab this guy, tear him away, and move him over onto the face. I think some free transform is going to be in order here. Command T or Control T there on the Windows side. There, something like this. All right, now I want to show you something cool here. I'm just going to shrink this guy down a little bit here. I want to show you something really neat here. We need two ears, right? But they need to be flipped, right? In other words, if I hit Enter to lock this guy in, and then I go and duplicate the ear, well, we're going to have two left ears, right? Or I guess it would be his right ear, right? So next what I'll do is I'll show you a really cool technique for flipping an object.